I have two questions in one. Um, do you see any comparisons in today's political climate with the Tea Party and those days in 1976? And how do you think Ronald Reagan would do today in a Texas primary?
You know, one of the things that surprised me in doing the research on the book was how much the Reagan 76ers sounded like the Tea Party movement today. They were basically complaining about the Republican Party and saying that it wasn't conservative enough. Many of the leaders in Reagan's Texas campaign were people that would go to district and state conventions, and they would complain about the party, and they were kind of outsiders and within the party. And some of them even encouraged Reagan to run as an independent that year because they didn't really have loyalty to the party. It was more to this idea that we have to have this kind of free market, you know, low tax government, low taxation, and they saw Reagan as their one champion. The question about how successful he would be now is a great question, and it's one that, you know, I mean, somebody could probably write a book about that, but I think there's, as I put it in the book, I think he you know, sort of shifted the goalposts. He moved the Republican Party in his direction. They didn't come to him. He moved the party to the right. But in doing so, the party continued to move it to the right. And, you know, many of the things that he did now would, I think, almost negate any chance he'd have to be a Republican nominee. I mean, the fact that he signed an amnesty bill, I think, as president, that alone would probably make it impossible for him to get the Republican nomination. He, as many people have pointed out, he signed many various tax increases. So I think he would have a real hard time in the climate because he pushed the party to the right, but it continued moving to the right, you know, after his presidency, and I think it's gone way past the point that he was at.
But he also, I mentioned that in my review, that whether you love him or hate him, he was his own man, wasn't it? Like, for example, his refusal to speak at a Baptist church in Dallas,
right,
because he claimed to have, you know, the relationship with God. I mean, wasn't that the thing to do, just like today, that you will speak at as many churches as you could in order to get votes? And he refused, and not only in terms of religion, but the other things that the campaign told him to do, and he said, no, I'm not going to do this. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and he certainly did things for you know, political reasons, and I'm not saying he was not expedient at times, but the level of pandering that we see now in the current climate, you know, I think that in fairness, whether people agree with his philosophy or not, he generally was better about those kinds of things, and tried to, and he had certain things that he would not do whether his supporters wanted him to or not. One thing that I really learned in doing this, I had never listened to the radio commentaries that he did in the 70s. He did some of them before he ran for president, and then continued after his 76 race. And he did these 3-minute daily commentaries, which he wrote by himself. And again, there are many arguments that he makes that I would disagree with, but one of the things that struck me is that these commentaries were really well written. They were thought out. He had really put some time into each issue, and a lot of these issues are issues that are coming up in today's climate. I mean, he was dealing with the question of whether public employees should be allowed to strike and so on. He was dealing with a lot of the same things that have come up in the national dialogue in recent years, and he put some thought into this. And the idea that many people had at the time, that he was maybe a puppet of his handlers. I think whether you agree with him or not, I think that point, I think we'd have to look, in fairness, we'd have to look back and say that was not a fair point to make. I think he was a person of substance, but, you know, we could certainly disagree about some of the points that he made.
Thanks a lot, Gil.